I will never forget the day I saw young Tembo's nose stretch across the riverbank like wet clay in the sun. I was only a boy then, tending my father's goats near the Limpopo River, and what I witnessed that morning changed not just Tembo, but every elephant that would ever walk this earth. Let me tell you how it happened. In those days, elephants looked different. Their noses were short and flat, no bigger than a cooking pot turned on its side. Tembo was the son of the elephant chief, and even as a calf, he was known throughout the savannah for one thing: he asked too many questions. Why is the sky blue? He would ask his mother. Why do the acacias have thorns? He would ask the giraffe. Why does the lion roar at night? He would ask anyone who would listen. Most of the older animals would sigh and walk away. His mother would pat him gently with her short trunk and say, "Some things simply are, my son. Not everything needs an answer." But Tembo could not accept this. Every morning he woke with new questions burning in his mind. And every evening he went to sleep unsatisfied, wondering about the world. I remember my father saying that curiosity in the young is like green wood on a fire. It smokes and smokes, but if you're patient, it eventually produces the strongest flame. He was right, though none of us knew it then. One dry season, when the grass turned yellow and the waterholes began to shrink, Tembo asked a question that would change everything. We were all gathered at the river. The hippos lounged in the shallows. The zebras drank nervously at the edges. My goats bleated as I led them down the slope. And there was Tembo, standing with the other young elephants, flapping his large ears against the heat. "Mother," he said, "what does the crocodile eat for dinner?" The entire riverbank went silent. His mother's eyes widened. The older elephants stopped drinking. Even the birds seemed to pause their songs. "We do not ask about the crocodile," his mother said quietly. "And we do not speak to him. This is the wisdom of our ancestors." But Tembo would not let it go. "But why, mother? Why can't we ask?" "He lives in the river. We drink from the river. Surely he must eat something." The big bull elephant, scarred and gray, stepped forward. "Young one, some questions are dangerous. The crocodile is not like us. He smiles with many teeth and speaks with a smooth tongue. Do not be fooled by him." Tembo nodded, but I could see in his eyes that he was not satisfied. He looked out at the river, where the dark shapes of crocodiles drifted like old logs, and I saw him thinking. 3 days later, I was alone by the river with my goats when I saw Tembo coming down the path. He was by himself, which was unusual. Young elephants always traveled with their families. He walked to the edge of the water and stood there, looking out. I should have called to him. I should have warned him. But I was only a boy, and I was curious too. So I hid behind a termite mound and watched. Tembo cleared his throat. "Excuse me," he called out to the river. "Mr. Crocodile, are you there?" For a moment, nothing happened. Then the water rippled, and a large crocodile surfaced. His eyes were golden and cold, and his smile showed rows of white teeth. "Good morning, young elephant," the crocodile said. His voice was soft, almost kind. "What brings you to my river alone?" "I have a question," Tembo said politely. "If you don't mind, sir. I've been wondering. What do you eat for dinner?" The crocodile's smile grew wider. "What a thoughtful question," he said. "Come closer, young one. I am old, and my hearing is not what it used to be." Tembo stepped closer to the water's edge. "Closer still," the crocodile whispered. "I would not want to give you the wrong answer." Tembo leaned forward, stretching his short nose toward the crocodile to hear better. And that's when it happened. The crocodile lunged forward and clamped his jaws around Tembo's nose. Tembo screamed. The sound was like nothing I had ever heard. He pulled backward with all his strength, his feet digging into the mud. The crocodile held on, pulling him toward the water. "Come with me, little elephant," the crocodile hissed. "Come and I'll show you exactly what I eat for dinner." I jumped up from behind the termite mound. "Help!" I shouted. "Help! The crocodile has Tembo." But we were far from the herd. There was no one to hear. Tembo kept pulling. His legs shook. His eyes rolled with fear. And his nose. His nose was stretching. The crocodile's grip and Tembo's pulling were making it longer and longer, like honey dripping from a comb. "Let go!" Tembo cried, his voice thick with pain. "Never," the crocodile growled. "You wanted to know what I eat? You young elephant. I eat curious little fools like you." Something changed in Tembo's eyes then. Fear became anger. Anger became determination. He planted his back legs firmly in the ground. He pulled with every bit of strength in his young body. And slowly, slowly, he began to win. The crocodile's eyes widened in surprise. His grip loosened just slightly. And in that moment, Tembo gave one final, desperate pull. He flew backward, tumbling onto the bank. Free. The crocodile sank back into the water with a frustrated hiss. "You were lucky today, elephant. But curiosity has a price. Look at what it has cost you." I ran to Tembo. He was breathing hard, sitting in the mud, and his nose. It was no longer short. It now hung down past his front legs, long and flexible and strange. "My nose," he whispered, touching it gently with his foot. "Look what he did to my nose." Tears rolled down his gray cheeks. He tried to push his nose back to its normal size, but it wouldn't go. He tried to fold it up, but it simply hung there, long and embarrassing. "I'm ruined," he said softly. "My mother was right. I should never have asked. I should never have gone near him. I sat with him there in the mud as the sun climbed higher. I didn't know what to say. We were both just children who had learned that the world could be crueler than we imagined." When Tembo's mother found us an hour later, she gasped. The whole herd came running, and they surrounded Tembo, touching his strange new nose with their own short ones. "My son," his mother said, her voice breaking. "What have you done?" Tembo told her everything. He expected anger. He expected to be cast out. But his mother only wrapped her short trunk around his long one and held him close. "Some lessons," she said quietly, "we must learn for ourselves." The days that followed were hard for Tembo. The other young elephants laughed at his long nose. They called him Snake Face and Crocodile's Toy. He tried to hide it, tried to tuck it away, but there was no hiding something so obvious. I watched him grow quieter, more withdrawn. He stopped asking questions altogether. But then, something unexpected happened. We were at the river again, a week later, and Tembo was standing far from the others, ashamed. The sun was brutal that day, and there was no shade. The other elephants flapped their ears uselessly, trying to cool down. Tembo walked to the river's edge. Carefully, watching for crocodiles, he dipped his long nose into the water. Then he lifted it, filled with cool water, and sprayed it over his back. The relief on his face was immediate. One of the young elephants who had teased him stopped laughing. How did you do that?" Tembo looked at his long nose, really looked at it, for the first time with something other than shame. Slowly, he dipped it again and sprayed another elephant. Soon, all the young elephants were gathered around him, amazed. "Can you reach that fruit up there?" one asked, pointing to an acacia branch too high for their short noses. Tembo reached up with his long nose and pulled down a branch heavy with seed pods. He shared them with everyone. "Can you pick up that small stick?" another asked. Tembo wrapped his nose around it delicately and lifted it with ease. By the end of that day, every young elephant wanted a long nose like Tembo's. I am an old man now. My goats are long gone, tended by my grandchildren. But I still go down to the Limpopo River sometimes, and I watch the elephants drink. All of them now have long trunks. They spray water on their backs. They pick fruit from high branches. They embrace their children with those flexible, wonderful noses. And I think of Tembo, and how his curiosity, which once seemed like a curse, became the greatest gift his people ever received. The other animals say that after that day, every young elephant went to the river and let the crocodile stretch their noses too. I don't know if that's true. My father used to say that sometimes one person's pain becomes everyone's inheritance, and we don't always know why. What I do know is this: Tembo never stopped asking questions. He grew into a wise old bull, and young elephants would come to him for answers. And he would always tell them, "Ask your questions, little ones. But ask them carefully. And when you find your answers, be ready for them to change you." I think of this often, especially when my grandchildren come to me with their endless questions. Why is the moon round? Why do we bury our dead? Why do some people have more than others? I could tell them that some things simply are. I could wave them away like the old animals waved away Tembo. But instead, I remember a young elephant by the river, and I try to answer. Because questions are how we grow. And sometimes, the answers we find stretch us in ways we never expected. Even when it hurts. Even when it changes us forever. That long nose we see on every elephant is not just a tool for survival. It is a reminder that curiosity has a price, but also a reward. And that sometimes, what we think is our greatest shame becomes our greatest strength. I saw it happen. I was there. And I will never forget.